There was a man, and the man told his doctors that he had swallowed a horse. And so his doctor referred him to an associate, a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist was very familiar with the man's malady. And so the psychiatrist told the man, the problem that you have is easily fixable. All the man had to do was to undergo a simple surgery to remove the horse from his stomach. The man enthusiastically agreed to the procedure. And so the doctor, the surgeon, and the psychiatrist prepared to perform what was necessary. The two doctors arranged to bring a horse into the operating room after the man had gone to sleep. And when the man woke up, he saw the horse, and the doctor said to him, "The surgery is complete and it was successful." The man looked at the horse, looked down at his stomach, and then began to protest, saying, "I'm sorry, but that's not the horse I swallowed. The horse I swallowed was white. That horse is brown." As we think about it, too much worry and not enough reality. It's really more common than we'd like to admit. Worry is more common. Would you care for surgery to remove your worry? As we come to the day, I think that this sermon, or this particular passage, is very appropriate, although I didn't select it. It's the lectionary text for today. Yet I think it's very appropriate as we look at TV, as we see what is going on in Madison. We become worried about the future. We become worried about whether the teachers will be heard and justice will happen. We become worried in our lives about other things that happen in our daily lives. This particular passage, though, is a passage in which we're very familiar with because it's attached to what is considered the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave in Galilee. It began with what is very familiar to all of us, as we call it the Beatitudes. Blessed are you, as Jesus lists various conditions that people find themselves living under, such as poverty, or hunger, or thirst, or trying to live meek and humble in a power-hungry world. They are told in the Beatitudes that at some point in the reign of God, all will be reversed. All of their troubles will be reversed. If they're hungry, they will be filled. If they're seeking justice and righteousness, that too will come about in the kingdom of God. And then in this sermon, which is called the Sermon on the Mount, which I suspect didn't take 15 minutes to go through, it was probably more than that. Jesus then moves from this this Beatitudes into the Lord's Prayer, teaching them how to pray to God. First, hallowing God's name, respecting God's name, putting God in God's proper place. And then they were told to pray for God's justice, God's reign to come upon the earth. That was their prayer. And as they prayed that prayer and they were taught how to fast, to empty themselves so that God could fill them. And then finally, Jesus finishes up in this sermon by telling the story about where your treasures are, there your heart will be also. But you and I come in the middle of the text, and we hear this passage. On the one hand, Jesus is saying, serving two masters is impossible. And then we end up somehow or another with this statement about serving God and money. And then all of a sudden, we have moved into the statement about worry. How did we so swiftly move from serving God to this indication of worry? It takes us back to the Beatitudes, actually. Living under conditions that actually cause us to worry. And so Matthew, as he's telling his church, worrying is another master that can divide our focus upon God. Worrying about money, whether we don't have enough or whether we have too much and don't know what to do with it. Worrying about clothes and what we shall wear and what we should. Today, I believe it's today, this evening, most of the world will be focused upon the Oscars. Not so much as who won the Oscar and who didn't win the Oscar, but what did they wear? What did they have on? Did they make the top 10 list? Or did they make the list of the bottom 10 who were the worst dressed? What did they have on? More people will tune in to see what did they wear. And Jesus is reminding us our clothing is not that important in the scheme of life. He even reminds us that food is not that important. Well, how does that rationalize with Jesus talking to those that were poor and saying, blessed are you, they're hungry, they have no money. But Jesus, in this passage, is reminding us that God has a plan. And we cannot serve two masters, worry and God. Worry takes our focus off of God. Worry not only takes our focus off of God, but worrying stops our faith and begins to help us to handle it